So a few days ago, someone in the Discord sent me this video from FANBATTLE, basically Cell from Dragon Ball taking on Metal Sonic from the games, and the video came out 2 days ago, meaning that obviously we should have Sonic Frontiers scaling, as well as all of the scaling from the modern games. And I watched the video, and oh my good god, this is some of the worst Sonic scaling that I've seen in a while. Like, this is Death Battle levels of bad, which is kind of ironic, given that this is basically a Death Battle clone of a YouTube channel. But anyways, let's get right into this. Also, one more thing guys, I'm not going to be covering the Dragon Ball scaling, one because I know fuck all about Dragon Ball, and two, you clicked on the video for Sonic stuff. Let's begin.
Himself. And so, after some upgrades and a bit of betrayal, Neo Metal Sonic was born.
Yeah, they gave Metal Sonic basically all of his transformations, including Neo Metal Sonic as well as Super Neo Metal Sonic.
Neo Metal would get to work surgically coordinating his forces, making use of his new liquid metal body to shapeshift into and impersonate Eggman, taking control of the Empire and enacting his true scheme. See, Metal isn't just a copy of Sonic. His true power lies in his ability to copy biodata. By analyzing a target, Metal can temporarily gain access to their abilities for himself, like Silver's telekinesis, though he doesn't keep them forever and has had to recopy them before. The copying also doesn't extend to raw power or speed, just abilities, though he's plenty capable on his own already.
Where is that ever confirmed that Metal Sonic can only copy abilities for a certain amount of time? And also, in Sonic Heroes, Eggman states that Metal Sonic has combined the data of all 12 playable characters with the power of Chaos and is quote-unquote super strong, meaning I'm fairly certain he copies not only abilities but also raw power and speed.
He should be leagued above his creator, who is able to survive this massive black hole, equivalent to 380 kilofold worth of energy. And, unsurprisingly, as a robot replica of Sonic, he's pretty dang fast as well. Even as early as his first outing, his flight could keep up with the Blue Blur, who is capable of running at the speed of light.
Yeah, they're probably referring to Sonic's base form when they say this, but even so, this is some of the most disgusting lowball to a character's speed that I've seen in recent memory. But first of all, I need to explain the higher tier speed metas that these guys just don't understand. Infinite speed, as the name would suggest, is when you are infinitely fast. It doesn't matter how fast your opponent is, if they don't have infinite speed themselves, you will always be infinitely faster than them. Inaccessible speed is where you are able to travel in a space where time is not present, or time is at zero. And then you have immeasurable speed, where you are able to travel freely back and forth through time alone with your sheer speed, or you are not bound by linear time. The reason why this is important to mention is because Sonic, even in his base form throughout the years, has speed feats that meet all of these requirements. There are multiple statements across the series proving that Metal Sonic ties with base Sonic in terms of speed, meaning that any speed feats for modern Sonic or classic Sonic should apply to Metal Sonic, especially with his stronger forms. And this is hilarious since, ironically enough, classic Sonic, even during the events of Sonic CD, the game that literally introduced Metal Sonic, he was already capable of traveling back and forth through time with his sheer speed under the right circumstances. Fast forward to Sonic and the Secret Rings, you have Sonic traveling across the Night Palace, which contains an infinite-sized realm across its astral plane, meaning that Sonic literally traveled across an infinite-sized space, which would yield infinite speeds. In addition to this, we have statements from Sonic himself flat out saying that he is faster than time itself, which we see is true a couple of games later, as shown in Generations.
When the Sonics accelerate through time, they fix space, returning color and life.
The Sonics are the one constant here. Their speed is restoring space-time.
In addition to this, you have Sonic in Forces able to escape null space, a realm where literally nothing exists, which presumably also includes time, which would also be an inaccessible speed feat. And then you have Sonic during the events of Frontiers, even in his base form, he's able to dodge attacks from Wyvern and Knight, characters who should be significantly more powerful and faster than anything that Sonic has faced in his life up until this point. And keep in mind that all of these feats apply to base modern Sonic and base classic Classic Sonic, and remember that these feats should also apply to base Metal Sonic as well, since Metal Sonic in base is stated multiple times across the series to be equal to Sonic in speed, meaning that even base Metal Sonic would be massively faster than the speeds that they put them at. And this is even backed up in the IDW comics, which are confirmed to be canon to the games, where modern Sonic beats the shit out of Metal Sonic, but then Neo Metal Sonic copies modern Sonic's data and just whoops his ass. Also, remember how I mentioned earlier that modern Sonic could dodge attacks from Wyvern and Knight? Yeah, these characters are able to react to Frontier's Super Sonic and keep up with him, and keep in mind that it's consistently proven within the series that Sonic gets stronger with age, and this would also apply to his super forms. And this is impressive because Super Sonic, even during the events of 06, could battle Solaris, a super-dimensional being that Eggman states would cause the collapse of time itself as the very concept. Not to mention that modern and classic Super Sonic had to fly to the very end of time itself in order to eventually defeat the Time Eater. And keep in mind that modern and classic Sonic, even in their base forms, were able to dodge and take attacks from the Time Eater. And keep in mind once again that all of these speed metas would apply to base form Metal Sonic, not even factoring in his Neo form or his Super Neo form. And as a result, light speed scaling is massive downplay for these characters, and it honestly goes to show that you have no idea what you're talking about and you didn't do your research. Made all the more impressive since Metal Sonic can literally amp his speed by a multiplier of 4 when he uses the maximum override attack, meaning that his speed is even greater than this and can potentially surpass Sonic's for a brief period of time.
And Metal's only gotten better since, let alone with his Neo Metal upgrades. These same upgrades also let him protect the Black Seal, a virtually indestructible barrier around. No surprise then that he got the Sonic Heroes right where he wanted them, and with all their biodata in his possession, absorbed the entirety of Eggman's fleet to become the Metal Overlord, hell-bent on ruling the world with a literally iron fist. As the Overlord, Metal grew to titanic proportions, taking to the skies with colossal wings and fending off the heroes. He came with a seemingly unending supply of missiles, the ability to trap foes in crystal, and could even use the Chaos Control technique to freeze time. Though, with the power of legendary Chaos Emeralds, Sonic and friends would put Metal down once again.
It's funny they bring up the Chaos Control ability, since even by their own logic, Chaos Control can stop time, meaning that when he uses this ability, anyone who doesn't have inaccessible speed is getting fucked by Metal Overlord.
Racing past this chrome disaster, he'd take it all away with Sonic speed. Eggman, now back in action, was understandably furious, and effectively lobotomized Metal back into being a loyal servant to the Empire. He may eventually start feeding some of his creations, like Sage, if they were children, but he wasn't quite there yet. Though he would occasionally provide Metal with the Neo upgrades once more to help serve him. And serve him it did, when Metal would eventually acquire the Chaos Emerald Superior, the Master Emerald for himself, absorbing its power to become Super Neo Metal Sonic. You can tell it's powerful because it has 3 adjectives. Even the normal Chaos Emeralds were capable of taking down Solaris, a cosmic being who could erase whole timelines at 73 quadrillion times the speed of light.
Oh, so the light speed scaling from earlier is meaningless? It was misleading? Like, why the fuck would you bring up light speed scaling if you were gonna try and imply that these characters scale like billions of times faster than the speed of light? Which, ironically enough, is still hilarious downplay, since if you pay attention to the cutscene, Eggman literally states that Solaris, by existing, is going to cause the collapse of time itself as a concept. And a friendly reminder, how do we calculate speed again? Why, it's distance divided by time, of course. Yet Solaris, a being who is causing the collapse of time as a very concept, is somehow still bound to the speed equation. You literally cannot calculate these feats, but hey, you tried. You fucked up massively, since by your own logic, Super Neo Metal Sonic is slower than base Sonic, but hey, you certainly tried.
And threatened to unravel the whole multiverse. So, how did the heroes stop him? Simple. Metal is not the most effective fighter.
Metal Sonic isn't the best of fighters? Are you fucking kidding me? Metal Sonic is able to consistently keep up with Sonic in a fight, and keep in mind that Sonic, during the events of Black Knight, was able to pick up and master sword fighting in a matter of hours or days, to the point where he was surpassing knights that have decades of experience, and he surpassed them to such a ridiculous extent that Sonic went down as one of the greatest knights in history. You also have Sonic's skill being praised by Master Zik in Lost World. Despite being thousands of years old, Master Zik was blown away by Sonic's skill and said that he was an unparalleled fighter in his own regard. Not to mention, it's implied in the IDW comics that Metal Sonic is as smart as Eggman, possibly more so once he gets rid of his tethers to the Eggman Empire. And if Metal Sonic is able to keep up with this same version of Sonic, who's able to master new combat styles in a matter of hours and is described as being a master combatant, I really don't see how this makes Metal Sonic a shit fighter.
So, he can copy abilities, but he rarely actually thinks to use them, really heavily relying on physical attacks and toying with his food, though he can still pull out the stops if push comes to shove. Sonic and friends are able to use this to their advantage, letting Shadow blast him out of Super Neo with a debilitating Chaos Speed.
See, I already know where this is going. They're gonna try using this as a reason to say, oh, Metal Sonic has all these OP abilities, but sometimes he doesn't even use them, you know? He just relies on raw power and his own, abilities. But it's like, that really isn't gonna lowball him in the slightest in this fight. As we've already gone over, they massively downplayed the shit out of Metal Sonic's speed, and it's no surprise that they're also trying to downplay his competency here as well.
Plus, the Emerald isn't a flawless source of power. Its amp only lasts for a pretty brief window, and this time limit can be drawn out from extra exertion. Once that juice runs out, it's back to basics.
I mean, his base form already has, inaccessible or immeasurable speed, so it's really not going to be holding him back all that much. Not to mention, it's pretty irrelevant if his super form only lasts a couple of minutes, if his super form is strong enough to one-shot Perfect Cell. But that basically covers the breakdown of his stats. Now let's go into the reasons as to why Metal Sonic supposedly loses to Perfect Cell.
Huh, really? I thought for sure Metal had this. He had more adjectives and everything. I admit, this surprised even us. Metal Sonic held clear leads in power no matter how you looked at it. Sure, Cell could blow away the solar system, even the galaxy, but the Chaos Emeralds are contended with power that threatens several realities.
Okay, so Perfect Cell is within the solar system to galaxy range of power, and Metal Sonic, by your own logic, is within the universal, multiversal, possibly higher ranges of power. And Metal Sonic didn't one-shot Cell immediately by your own logic.
It's easy to assume that'd be more than enough for Metal to blow Cell away, but raw strength isn't everything.
If you can literally blitz and one-shot your opponent, then yes, raw power is everything.
And the full picture paints a different outcome. For starters, it's important to remember Metal only has access to that level of power when using Super Neo.
Wrong, actually. The Sonic characters are stated multiple times and shown to get stronger with age, to such an extent that Sonic in his base form in Forces can eventually defeat Infinite, who is stated by Dr. Eggman in the English version to be 1,000 times more powerful than anything that he has ever made before, with the Japanese port saying that Infinite is 1,000,000,000,000 times stronger than anything he has made in his life. Not to mention, we also have scans saying that Infinite is the most powerful villain that Sonic has ever fought in his life up until that point. And then you have base Sonic in Frontiers able to dodge attacks from the Titans, with individual Titans being implied to be massively above Infinite, meaning that Infinite would upscale Solaris and base Sonic would upscale his 06 superform. And since Metal Sonic is stated multiple times to be equal to base Sonic in stats, yes, Metal Sonic, even in his base form, in the modern day, would have surpassed Solaris in terms of raw power.
Even Overlord doesn't really compare. This would limit Metal to a strict time limit.
Which is irrelevant because by your guys' own logic, Metal Sonic in the super form would one-shot Perfect Cell.
A restriction Cell doesn't have. Combine that with the fact that Super Neo and Cell are looking at decently similar levels of speed, with Super Neo only being about 4 times faster.
They are not even close in speed. Base Metal Sonic effortlessly blitzes Perfect Cell.
And it raises the question of if Metal will be able to properly capitalize on this time. Yeah, without that level of power, Metal's weaker forms would be taken out by Cell.
they really would not be taken out by Perfect Cell. Like, Sonic, even in his base form, has universal plus metas, and you seem to have Perfect Cell around the solar system to galaxy range of power. So, no, but Metal Sonic would effortlessly one-shot Perfect Cell even in base, and by your guys' own logic, his super form would one-shot Perfect Cell also. Like, this is literally the Gara versus Toph argument all over again, where Death Battle put Toph against Gara, someone who is better than her in every single way, and has her weakness at his disposal, and yet somehow Toph still beats him.
So, the question became, would Super Neo be able to take down Cell before time ran? The answer is both yes and no.
How is it a yes or a no? He either can or he can't, and by your guy's own logic, he effortlessly blitzes and one-shots Perfect Cell. So, again, how is this up for debate?
See, Cell's regen would make it nigh impossible for anything Metal did to stick.
His regeneration won't do shit if he doesn't heal fast enough to protect him from immeasurable speed characters. Like, Deadpool has a fantastic healing factor and allows him to cheat death multiple times, but do you see his healing factor doing anything in a fight against the Flash, for instance?
But Metal did have one way around this. Copying Cell and firing his own Kamehameha right back at him.
Or he could just, blitz and one-shot him.
Something which we know would kill Cell for good. Unfortunately, Metal has a tendency to heavily favor going for brute force, rarely actually employing copied abilities.
Okay, that's fine. Metal Sonic ignores all of his badass abilities and just blitzes and one-shots Perfect Cell. Like, you guys have wrote yourself into a corner here. Like, there's no way you can get around this by your own logic, and yet you're gonna still try to do so anyways.
A weakness that's caused him to fumble in these kind of situations before. So he'd likely figure it out eventually, but by that point it's highly likely Cell's Zenkai boost would have gotten that previously slightly slower speed to the point he could easily play keep away and dodge anything Metal threw at him.
Unless the Zenkai boost is so extreme that it allows you to defy the very fucking speed equation itself, it's not gonna protect him against immeasurable speed characters. Also, you do realize Metal Sonic can amp his stats 4 times with the maximum override attack? Like, yeah, it's a last resort, like this attack could be fatal towards Metal Sonic if he uses it too often, but the point is that he still has a counter to the Zenkai boost.
Wearing him out. Even a single Zenkai boost would flip the speed gap on its head and then some. Effectively, Metal would have a limited opportunity to kill Cell.
Like, you're putting a solar system or galaxy buster against a universal plus character. Like, there's no fucking shot he survives.
And would very likely inadvertently make his opponent fast enough to dodge him before realizing what has to be done.
In order to make that argument at all, you would be implying that Perfect Cell has speed feats remotely close to even classic Sonic the Hedgehog. And a friendly reminder that classic Sonic, even during the events of Sonic CD, had means and ways of achieving immeasurable speed.
Sure, Overlord could use Chaos Control to drag out the fight, but it doesn't really help Metal win.
How the fuck does stopping time not help you win? Like, if Metal Sonic stops time, then anyone who doesn't have inaccessible speed or above is instantly frozen from his perspective. And since you guys seem to have Perfect Cell around the MFTL plus mark for speed, yes, if Metal Sonic stops time at any point in this fight, it's over.
And as we've said, Super Neo is the only form able to blow Cell away here.
I mean, even if that were true, Super Neo Metal Sonic blitzes and one-shots Perfect Cell by your own logic, so why would it matter?
Metal could definitely win if he played optimally, but his preference for physical attacks means Cell's regen just wouldn't be something he'd immediately be able to counter.
Again, that's a no-limits fallacy, because impressive regeneration is one thing, but characters with regenerative abilities can still get knocked out or killed, especially by characters massively above them by your own logic.
Letting the android get faster and faster until it's too late for Metal, and Super Neo runs dry. Cell, meanwhile, can keep going as long as he needs to, and would be capable of playing keep away from Super Neo, especially with things like teleportation and Cell Juniors to keep Metal further occupied.
Counterpoint to that, Super Neo Metal could just use Chaos Control and prevent literally all of that from happening, and then just blitz and one-shot Perfect Cell.
And, while Metal could copy Cell's regeneration and Zenkai boost for himself, he couldn't benefit from them the same way Cell could, with Super Neo being invincible, and his other forms just not stacking up.
Okay, so by your guys' logic, Super Neo Metal Sonic is invincible, meaning that Perfect Cell can't do shit to him. He has a ginormous AP advantage by your guys' logic, since you seem to have Cell around the solar system to galaxy ranges, whereas you put Metal Sonic at universal. So, again, by your own logic, Metal Sonic is invincible to all harm, and he blitzes and one-shots Perfect Cell. Like, the fight should start and end right there, by your own logic.
Metal Sonic had overwhelming power, but Cell's ever-increasing prowess, terrifying regeneration, and repertoire of techniques let the android snag a win once his foe's batteries ran out.
Again, a long drawn-out battle is irrelevant if your opponent can blitz and one-shot you. Like, how the fuck is Cell supposed to draw out the battle? First of all, operating under the assumption that drawing out the battle is gonna give him any advantage at all, because as I've proven already, it literally won't. Metal Sonic has Chaos Control, which is a direct counter to basically all of Cell's abilities. But let's run with that for a second, the idea that Cell can draw out the fight. That is completely irrelevant against a character who, by your own logic, is invincible and he can blitz and one-shot you. Like, how the fuck is a long drawn-out fight even possible at that point?
The robotic doppelganger wanted to prove his mettle, but ended up getting put through hell in a cell. The winner is Perfect Cell.
That's one of the worst videos that I've seen this year. Like, the sheer mental gymnastics going on here in order to wank Cell, and the sheer downplay to Metal Sonic was fucking crazy. Yeah, if it hasn't become apparent already, I do think that Metal Sonic, especially with his higher forms, he completely destroys Cell. Not only does he have a massive physical advantage to the point where I don't see Cell doing shit to him, however, he also has abilities that Cell just has no counter for, like the Chaos Control. But what do you guys think? Do you agree that Metal Sonic should have won? Or do you think that they got the outcome right? Let me know down below, and consider subscribing to the channel and becoming a member to the channel for as little as £1 a month to get exclusive Sonic emojis, as well as a shout out at the end of every video. I thank you all for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.